Welcome to Shadowed Tales Archive. Tonight, we invite you to descend into darkness with a chilling anthology of horror stories, each one inspired by true events. This is episode 5. Let the nightmare begin. Whispers in the Fields. After a job-related relocation to Indianapolis, my family and I were given an allowance to rent a home in the city in order to give us some time to look for our forever home. That rental, a 100-year-old house that was considered historic and couldn't be gentrified, was charming in its own way, but it gave us a pretty good idea of what we did not want. It had some, quirks, but we got used to them. But that's another story for another time. To sum it up, though, that rented house was cold, damp, and dark throughout. It got to be pretty depressing at times. Indianapolis is like a gemstone in the middle of Indiana, albeit one whose clarity, cut, and color would never pass a jeweler's quality control measures. What I mean is that it's a bright, glaring, concrete and glass island in the middle of what some consider flyover country. Pretty much all farmland. Indy doesn't have much to offer in the way of suburbs. Its central business district is surrounded by a pretty ugly industrial zone littered with slums and trailer parks, which gives way almost immediately to open fields. Having lived in big cities all of our lives, my wife Emily and I were ready for a change. Plus, we wanted somewhere safe and with lots of space where our kids could grow up. We wanted them to have a swing set, a place to ride their bikes, not crowded sidewalks and busy streets right outside the door. We weren't having much luck, though. Then we struck gold. We found a plot of land about 20 miles outside of downtown, agricultural land that had been rezoned for residential, that was smack dab in the middle of wide, open fields with a nice stand of trees at the rear of the property as a bonus. The nearest neighbor was a horse farm about a half-mile down the road. It was a place where we could build our dream home, so we put down the money, found an architect and contractor, and commenced construction. The first snag during construction would become an omen of what was to come, but at the time we thought it was just an inconvenience. Being an engineer myself, I was keeping a close eye on construction. I paid daily visits to the site and planned to watch everything from the groundbreaking until the final tack installed in the carpeting. The contractor had broken ground and was beginning excavation for the basement and footings. They were making good time until one fateful day. I showed up at the site after work to find that the contractor's men had left, the equipment was gone, and there was a large and obviously ancient metal tank sitting on the ground at the edge of the hole. I immediately called the foreman, and he told me that, while digging, they had broken through a brick cistern about 15 feet under the grade. He almost lost a piece of equipment down the 30-foot deep hole underneath. They had found a metal tank near the well and pulled it out. It would have to be inspected by the EPA to test for environmental hazards, and that would set them back about a week. He was more concerned, however, about how he was going to work around the deep hole. Filling it in with soil would cause settling problems later, and he certainly couldn't fill it in with concrete. It would have raised the construction cost by tens of thousands of dollars. When I told my friends about the obstacle my contractor had stumbled upon, almost all of them joked. What's next? An ancient Indian burial ground. I laughed. I had a sense of humor about it back then. After the EPA cleared us, the contractor proceeded with construction. He had come up with a plan to cast a reinforced concrete beam across the top of the old cistern and cast the house's footing across it. So I got the bonus of having the north wall of my home supported by a very deep footing. Not a bad deal. But even after moving in and living there for years, the thought of that big, dark, empty space lying beneath my basement floor sort of gave me the willies. There were no other hitches throughout the rest of the home's construction, save for the usual deviations from plans and wrong materials being delivered. No more big surprises, although they did pull up the occasional interesting brick or antique tool when doing earthwork around the yard. When complete, our new forever home was the complete antithesis of the rental we were moving out of. The floor plan was open and airy, with plenty of light streaming in from windows in every wall. A particular favorite spot for the whole family was a large all-glass sunroom at the back of the home. It was a beloved place to curl up on the couch and read during the winter or sit and watch the children play during the summer. During the fall, we had a beautiful view of the woods and the changing colors of the leaves. It was perfect for a while. Anyway, it was a few weeks after building a huge swing set/playhouse for our two boys that I first noticed the four children playing in our backyard. 2 boys and 2 girls. The oldest of the girls seemed to be in her early teens, and the youngest, her brother, I assumed perhaps 5 or so. The age of my youngest son, Eli. The boys were outfitted in coveralls, and the girls were dressed in simple shifts. Their clothes reminded me of the Amish, and since the nearest neighbor was the horse farm, I naturally assumed that the children belonged to the couple owning the place. Odd. We had met them briefly when moving into the new house, and they never mentioned having kids. Some people are funny that way, though. I was happy to see the children. I've been thinking that my own kids were not going to have anyone to play with. No friends. And here were 4 children who obviously live quite close. I opened the back door and stepped out onto the deck. "Hey there, guys." I no sooner got out the words than the kids reacted. They looked up at me, seemingly startled, then took off running. "Wait, it's okay. You're welcome to." I trailed off. I hoped that I didn't scare them. I found myself wishing that they would come back. Perhaps I would take a walk down to their parents' farm when I had the time and let them know that the children were allowed to play in our yard, that we didn't mind. After a couple of days, I realized that it had slipped my mind, but it didn't matter because the children were back, playing on the swing set again. I figured that I should approach them more carefully this time. I put together a tray with a pitcher of Kool-Aid and some cookies, an international sign of goodwill among kids, and started out the back door once again. "Anyone up for some cookies?" I called out. It didn't work, though. They caught a glimpse of me and took off through the trees again. Dang, I felt really bad for scaring them. I really needed to get over to that farm and talk to them. Once again, though, I got busy with other things and the task went on the back burner. I came up with a plan. Sure enough, the kids came back. This time, though, instead of going outside myself, I sent my own 2 boys, Caleb and Eli, out as ambassadors. My strategy worked. The children were a bit wary at first, but soon warmed up to my boys. After a while, I called the boys in and sent some drinks and snacks out with them. Once I had seen that all of the kids had taken something, I went outside. This time, the children didn't run away. The older girl spoke up. "Please forgive us, sir. We did not mean to play here without your permission." "Nonsense," I replied. "You all can come over whenever you feel like it, whether my boys are out or not. We're neighbors." I received a chorus of thank yous from the children. "Well, I'll leave you to it. Once again, I'm happy that you kids are around. I'm sure that my boys will enjoy your company." My boys did enjoy their company. Over the following weeks, they had all become the best of friends. Caleb and Eli began asking if they could go to the children's farm to play, and I hesitated at first because of their ages, but soon relented. The children seemed so nice and polite, after all. And the oldest girl, Anna, was what my wife and I thought of as babysitting age, so I figured that they were safe with her. One day, my boys arrived home with dirty clothes, dirtier than usual, and I asked them what they had been up to. "Nothing," was the usual reply, but this time Caleb, by then 8 years old, seemed really excited. "We were checking out the cemetery, Dad." Boy, that came as a shock to me. It was my impression that there was nothing around us. "What cemetery?" "The one in the woods," said Caleb. "The other kids showed us." Well, this I had to see for myself. I had been a kid once too, though I barely remembered it. I did recall making up places. An old boathouse became a fort for my younger self. A fishing pond seemed like an ocean. The kids had probably found some interesting-looking rocks and imagined that they were tombstones. Still, I asked if they could show me. Eli was tired and went directly upstairs to take a bath, but Caleb, still full of energy, was eager to go. "It's getting dark, Dad. We'd better get there while we can still see." He led me off into the woods at the back of our property. Needless to say that I was shocked by what I saw. "Well, I'll be damned," I mumbled to myself. There was a farm back there in the woods. A small one, yes, but a farm nonetheless. It was in decrepit condition and no longer inhabited. No house left, but there was a small barn, half falling down, a corral that looked like it once held sheep or goats, and a large, low structure, another barn, but perhaps for the small animals or chickens. There was an old truck back there. Not a truck like you'd normally picture, but a panel truck on wagon wheels. The type that would have been drawn by a horse. And right there in the center of it, a cemetery. I'll be damned, I repeated. There were 5 tombstones visible. 2 large ones and 3 smaller ones. The smallest measuring about 1 foot square. In the center of these, and toppled over by a tree that had grown practically around it, was a large prism-shaped monument with a roughly chiseled sphere on top that had some names chiseled in it. Hargrove was in the largest letters, probably the family name. Still in a state of surprise, I quickly looked over the smaller stones. They were dated from the early 1900s, and doing some quick math, I deduced that the inhabitants of the graves ranged in age from less than a year old to 38. I don't know how I had never seen it before. I had hiked a short way into the woods before, but somehow missed this farm. Granted, the barn, the tallest structure, was weathered and its planks had turned gray to match the surrounding cedars. But still, it only sat about 25 yards from the edge of the woods. Once I knew it was there, it became obvious. I looked out at it from my bedroom window every morning. This definitely deserved looking into. I dug into everything I could find on the internet and at the local library. It seemed that these pioneer cemeteries dotted central Indiana. A quick search turned up at least 3 more within a couple of miles from my house. The Hargrove Cemetery, my cemetery, however, was not listed among them. The long and short of it was this. During the late 19th century, pioneers were crossing the Midwest on their way to America's West Coast. Many of them found sufficient places along the way and decided to settle in those spots. They would build their tiny homesteads and usually live out their lives there. Many of the older families still remain. The reason for the concentration of these homesteads and cemeteries around our area was the proximity to what would become Route 40, one of the first major travel ways across the United States. Unfortunately, for many of the budding families, the great influenza epidemic of 1918 struck. Dense populations fell quickly because of communal wells and sanitary facilities. Even the outlying farms fell victim because of shared groundwater or a family member that picked up the bug on a visit to town. Most of these smaller homesteads fell into disrepair, and their farms and deceased were absorbed back into the wilderness. As the old family cemeteries were discovered, they were usually cleaned up out of respect for the dead, and there were vast movements and societies dedicated to restoring the tombstones and their grave sites, as well as compiling records of those who were buried there. On one of my almost daily visits to the cemetery, I verified that the residents had indeed all died in or about 1,918 victims of the flu, sure enough. Once all of my sources of information were exhausted, I contacted the local historical society. I told the representative about the cemetery and expressed my interest in helping to clean it up and get it recorded in the historical register. They were excited and sent someone out, literally within hours, to take a look. Her name was Laura, I believe. Laura and I walked out into the woods. She asked all types of questions and told me a little about the history of the area, most of which I had already discovered on my own. She did point out a couple of interesting things, though. She had brought a long piece of rebar and began walking around, poking it into the ground. "Yep, just as I suspected," she said. "There are more. More. Yes, more. More graves." She explained that because the grave markers were small and not supported on concrete pads, as they typically are now, they tended to sink into the ground. She estimated that there may have been up to 25 people buried out there. The other tidbit she let me in on was a little disconcerting. "If you find any bones, let me know immediately." "What? Bones?" She went on to explain that although most of the wooden coffins tended to rot away over time, foxes would sometimes pull up metal hinges, jewelry, bits of clothing, and even bones. After everything that I'd been through in my life, I was not squeamish. Still, this revelation sat ill with me. Throughout all of this, the thought of the neighbor's children had taken a back burner. They were the ones who were really responsible for the discovery. Perhaps they knew more. I would definitely need to talk with them. I told Laura about them, and she expressed an interest in meeting them also. While she had me on the phone, she asked if she could email some documents that she had found regarding my neighbors, as she had taken to calling them, the family who were most likely occupying the graves out there behind me. I remember joking that they were the perfect neighbors, always quiet and never asking to borrow my lawnmower. While the Hargrove family were the final owners of the farm, Laura found out that they had married into the family of the original owners, the Winsley family. Turned out that the Winsley boys were grave robbers by trade, the not-so-nice kind, who opened recently filled graves to steal jewelry and valuables. They had gotten into trouble for it a number of times. Ironic, since we would most likely now be digging up some of their graves. Only we wouldn't be stealing anything, just for storing and preserving them for history and out of respect. The neighbor kids hadn't been around in a while, so Laura never got the chance to talk to them. After a bit of research on her part, she found an heir to the sliver of property, one who didn't even realize that his family had owned land in the area, and they had made arrangements for him to begin clearing the area with the assistance of volunteers from the local Pioneer Cemetery Restoration Society. They did find quite a number of bones at the back of the farm, but determined that was the location where the farmers had slaughtered hogs and dumped their carcasses. The workers had not come across any human remains yet. My interest in the project did not wane. In fact, it intensified. I began visiting other cemeteries and museums. The Indiana State Museum had a large exhibit dedicated to relics of the early 20th century, with a section devoted to burial practices, which were a fact of life, a big part of life, given the harsh conditions that the early settlers had to face. That's when it started to become creepy for me. I was fascinated by some of the vestiges of the time that the museum curators had on display. Fancy burial clothes, photos of the dead in their coffins, a common practice apparently, ringlets woven of hair from the deceased as remembrances, and, most disconcerting, small caskets, child-sized coffins. That really hit home. Being a father of 2 young boys, I was disturbed by the thought of a parent having to bury their fledgling child. Then I saw it, the thing that would haunt my dreams. A child-sized casket with a window set into it. A window that would display the child's face and upper body. There were photos of such coffins with their occupants displayed next to it. All that went through my mind was, why the hell would someone ever do that? That is so freaking disturbing. People back in the old days were certainly a different breed. I left the museum immediately and literally could not even eat the rest of the day. From that point on, I lost interest in the work going on in the woods behind my house. Honestly, I didn't lose interest so much as avoided it. I dreaded the thought of the workers unearthing one of the small caskets. Caskets that were undoubtedly out there, given the ages shown on the grave markers. Worse still, what if one of them had that glass pane in it? I couldn't handle seeing that. No way. I did my best to forget about the whole mess. After avoiding a few of Laura's calls, she must have finally gotten the message and stopped bothering me. I warned Caleb and Eli not to go near the cemetery, even if the neighbor kids urged them to play out there. Not wanting to scare them, I explained it away with the excuse that the barn was old and dangerous, ready to collapse at any moment, and that the volunteers working out there did not want to be disturbed. Ironically, the big discovery came on Halloween Day, 2012. Laura thought that it was a big enough event that she skipped calling and just came knocking at my door. They had begun working near the graves, raising sunken markers, and had inadvertently pulled up an entire child's casket. One of those sort with a glass window. The glass had been shattered, of course, but Laura said that the remains were in remarkable condition. She asked if I wanted to come out and take a look. I told her that I was simply not interested anymore and slammed the door before she had another chance to speak. I warned the boys again that they were not to play in the woods, especially after the discovery. My worry was doubled because of the holiday. As I said, it was Halloween. What better way for kids to celebrate than by visiting a spooky graveyard and telling ghost stories? The afternoon faded. Dusk came, and darkness soon followed. Even moonlight could not filter through the overcast night sky. Around 9 o'clock, I heard banging on the back door. Trick-or-treaters? Not in our neighborhood. It was too far out of the way, not enough houses, didn't make economic sense for true candy hunting aficionados. I went to the door and looked out. It was the neighbor kids, only 3 of them. They seemed to have left the youngest boy, Noah, at home. Relieved, I opened the door and apologized. Sorry kids, I didn't think that we'd be getting trick-or-treaters tonight. Guess I didn't plan ahead. I chuckled. But I'll catch you next time, okay? One by one, their faces changed to outrage, pure hatred, and the politeness they had always exhibited disappeared entirely. Blast you, you cussed old boat liquor, said Samuel, the older of the 2 brothers. Fuck off, you Nancy boy prick, said Grace, the younger girl. Explicitly appalling, given her age. The oldest girl, Anna, finally said, let's leave this blue-nosed twat to the devil. And the children ran off into the woods. Damn it all, what the hell had gotten into them? Just because I didn't have candy? I was so angry that I paced for half an hour. Caleb and Eli, still awake, had come down to see what was going on. You're never playing with those damn kids again. I threatened, but in reality, I thought, at least not until I get an apology and an explanation. I gave my boys a lecture on politeness and sent them off to bed. I sat down in my favorite chair and flicked on the television. Due to the complete blackness outside, I didn't see them approach the house. But I was startled when all 3 children slammed their hands against the great windows along the back of the house. Sticking their tongues out at me, they chanted in unison. Tell me you've been gone all day, that you may make whoopee all night. I'm going to take my razor and cut your late hours. You wouldn't think I'd be serving you right. I said, Undertaker been here and gone. I gave him your height and size. You be making whoopee with the devil in hell tomorrow night. Then they ran off. It wasn't long before they returned, banging on the windows all together. Scared the crap out of me. Again, they were chanting, this time a more detailed and descriptive song. We am gonna cut your head 4 different ways. A, B, C, D, that's long, short, deep, and wide. I'm gonna cut E, F, G right across your face. H, I, J, K, that's where running bound to take place. Cut L, M, N cross both your arms. You'll sell in pedal gal your whole life long. And so on. You get the gist. At least these kids knew their alphabet. This continued most of the night, long after normal kids should be asleep in their beds. I would definitely be visiting their parents the next day. First thing in the morning, we were already in bed when I heard the glass break. One of them had thrown a rock at a window downstairs, and it had shattered the pane. I ran down the steps and threw open the back door. They were already gone, but the next moment, I heard them again, now chanting something new. A man of words and not of deeds. It's like a garden full of weeds. And when the weeds begin to grow, it's like a garden full of snow. And when the snow begins to fall, it's like a bird upon the wall. And when the bird away does fly, it's like an eagle in the sky. And when the sky begins to roar, it's like a lion at the door. And when the door begins to crack, it's like a stick across your back. And when your back begins to smart, it's like a penknife in your heart. And when your heart begins to bleed, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead indeed. Again, they ran off. I decided that I wasn't going to play around anymore. I knew that they were only children, but I grabbed a baseball bat from a bin in my garage and took up a post on the steps of my deck in the backyard. Let's just see them come back again, I thought. The next time, it was only the teenage girl, Anna, who came out of the woods. She approached me cautiously, her head lowered, not looking me in the eyes. We're sorry, sir, she said softly. We're just so angry. They took our brother. What? I wrinkled my brow. Who took your brother? What? The bad people. They came to our farm and took our brother away. An anxious feeling began creeping into me. I felt a shiver on my spine. Where are your parents? Dead, sir, she replied matter-of-factly. Hold on. Now I was in an outright panic. Was this a prank? What if it wasn't? Not to be made a fool of, I wasn't about to call the police just yet. I told the girl to wait at the house while I jumped into my car and sped down the road to the neighbor's farm. The lights were on in the house, and I could see someone moving inside, so I approached the front door. After I felt sure that it was safe, I screwed up my courage and knocked. The owner of the farm answered. Oh, thank God you're okay. I breathed a sigh of relief. Then my anger returned tenfold. Do you know what your damn kids have been up to? He looked at me as if I was a lunatic. What are you going on about? We don't have any kids. Whispers in the Grove. One hot summer, an unnaturally hot summer for my province actually, my friend Lena invited a few of her girlfriends out to her family's cabin a few hours away from the city. Going to the cabin in the summer is one of the most favored things for people who live on this rock in the middle of the Atlantic. Newfoundland is Canada's most eastern province and the most easterly point in all of North America. Lena's family owned a cabin on a little island about 5 hours away from the capital of St. John's. A ferry ran twice a day across the bay to bring you over and take you back to the small community of less than 150 people. She brought 3 of us along that summer. Her girlfriend Emily, Nina, and me, Maya. The island where her cabin is located is small, and the community smaller. There aren't a whole lot of people around, and I was told it would be hard to get lost in the woods because of the size of the place. So it was perfect for the exploring Lena was excited to do. She knew there were tons of old houses out in the woods, but at that point hadn't been able to go check them out. We were planning on staying there for a week. We left on a Sunday, and on the following Saturday, Lena's parents were coming to stay at the cabin for another week. We had a lot of time to relax, swim, sunbathe, smoke too much weed, and eat way too much food. On Wednesday, we were taking a walk through the downtown of the community. Downtown is a serious exaggeration. It was just where most of the houses are and where the ferry docks. When a family friend waved us over to his lawn to ask us how things were going. Lena knew him well, and they were chatting about family, how the summer was going, if her father had got a moose yet, the basic stuff. When Lena mentioned to him that she was interested in exploring the woods a bit, her friend furrowed his brow and warned her that even though the island was small, the woods were surprisingly easy to get lost in. You watch it now, Lena. You knows these woods are teeming with the good people, he said, giving the rest of us a little side wink. Lena laughed and patted his shoulder. Dad warned me all about them coming out here when I was a kid. I know all about the fairies, and I also know not a damn one of us have had any trouble with them. So I think we'll be okay, she replied. But I'll put a piece of bread in my pocket, just in case. Now, fairies. They're a weird Newfoundland thing brought over from our English and Irish ancestors. At the time I was in university, majoring in folklore, so I thought I knew all about them. I was beyond excited to hear them mentioned. It's a dying belief here and isn't really taken seriously anymore. It's hard to find anyone who even knows about them these days, let alone anyone who would actually warn us about them and call them by their old name, the good people. I know what you're thinking. Who the hell would be afraid of fairies of all things? But these aren't the cute Tinkerbell fairies with wings and magic dust and cute shit. The ones around here are a different kind of fairy altogether. This is something that I would learn the hard way. After Lena said her goodbyes, Nina asked her what the piece of bread was all about. They say a piece of bread in your pocket keeps you safe from them, she replied with a grin. Nina gave me the side eye. Are you serious? She asked. Safe from what? You've really never heard of the fairies before? I asked her, not being able to stop my smart ass from being superior in my wealth of folklore knowledge. They lead you off into the woods and shit and make you lost. Steal your babies and generally fuck you up. Little gnarly old guys who dance around rocks and think it's a fun time to kill your animals and create mischief wherever they can. Nina rolled her eyes at me. Okay, Miss Paranormal Expert, go get your degree in ghosts already. She gave me a playful shove. We reached the top of a hill that overlooked the downtown area and the beach. Lena pointed in the opposite direction. And that's where we're going after lunch, ladies. Right into the woods. Will our phones work out there? You know your way around out there, right, babe? Emily asked her, frowning at her iPhone. I only have one bar right now. No, it probably won't, but we'll be fine. We won't go so far and we might get lost. I'll just climb a fucking tree and look for a house. Not like this place is big, she replied. Lena was the most adventurous and bravest of us all. I could see the excitement buzzing in her. We wouldn't be able to say no to this idea. All of us knew that. So we put on our hiking gear and off we went. The first hour or so was uneventful. We weren't just wandering aimlessly. There ended up being a labyrinth of old trails and ATV tracks we could follow. I loved hiking, so I was soaking up the sounds and smells of the woods. When Lena yelled out to us from further up the path, "You guys, oh man, come here. Come look." We rounded the turn and came right up to a house. It was like the trail led right to it. It was old, obviously abandoned, just seemingly sitting right in the middle of the woods, with a small, overgrown front lawn that was lined with a falling down white picket fence. It was a salt box style house that is extremely common in Newfoundland. At one point in time, basically all the houses looked like this one. The paint was peeling. One of the windows on the top floor was boarded up, and the old wooden front door was hanging off its hinges. Look at this beauty. Holy fuck, we hit the motherlode with this one. There's still stuff inside. Lena could barely contain her excitement as she peered in through the windows. We entered through the open front door and began looking around. The house wasn't big. It had a small sitting room, a dining room, and kitchen on the bottom floor. Old, dusty furniture and random knickknacks were still scattered throughout, and wallpaper peeled from the walls. Nina and I were looking at some faded and worn-out pictures on the wall, while Emily was standing awkwardly in the middle of the dining room, biting her lip. I could tell she was feeling uncomfortable. "Relax, babe. No one is here, and it's only 2 o'clock. There's tons of sunlight left. Look at all this stuff. This is wild," Lena exclaimed as she inspected a very large old record player against the wall. "I don't know, I just feel weird in this place," Emily replied as her eyes wandered around the room uncomfortably. "That's 'cause it's old as fuck and probably about to fall at any moment," Nina teased. Lena shot her a disapproving look, but I laughed. Emily was the most anxious of us all. I wasn't much better, but I was feeling surprisingly okay. I was too interested and preoccupied in all the cool old stuff to worry about anything just yet. At once, Lena decided she wanted to check out the top floor. "Well, I'm not going up there." "Why is it so dark?" Emily asked as she wrapped her arms around herself and glared up the stairs. "That must be from the boarded up window," I guessed, but I was feeling pretty uncomfortable going up there myself. Fuck that. I can admit to being a wimp just fine. Old houses are creepy, and it was really dark up there. I wasn't interested in seeing any ghosts or falling through the floor. Lena, however, was all about it, and the rest of us reluctantly agreed to follow her up. "I don't understand why it's so dark up here. I thought only one window was boarded up," I said as we arrived at the top of the stairs. There was a room to our left, but the door was jammed, so we went down the short hallway that led to the front of the house. The boarded up window was at the end of the hallway, but I noticed there was no window at all in the child's room we had entered. Lena and Nina were looking excitedly through a box of toys, talking about the weird old shit, while I glanced around the room. It was small, only big enough to have a small toddler-sized bed, a toy box, and a bookshelf. "This is too creepy, you guys. I want to leave," Emily said, her brows furrowed. "No, babe, come on. This is so cool," Lena pleaded. "What are you so afraid of? There's no one here but us." Emily shifted uncomfortably, admitting defeat. Nina stopped what she was doing and looked around slowly. "Did you guys hear that?" My heart jumped in my chest. "What?" I asked. "Don't say shit like that in here. Please stop freaking us out." "No, seriously," she said and stood up. I thought for sure I heard someone call my name. I bit my lip, wondering if I should believe her or assume she was trying to scare us. I don't know. Then I heard it. Very, very softly. Someone call my name. It was so soft and so far away sounding that I wasn't sure I had heard it at all. I blinked and looked at the others. They were standing still as could be, and I could see fear in Emily's eyes. It was my name that time, she almost whispered. But I started to reply when Lena cut me off. Now you guys, you're just freaking yourselves out. Maybe we should leave before you start convincing yourselves of other shit, she said, obviously annoyed. But I could tell the tone in the room had changed dramatically. We agreed to leave. When we got outside, I felt almost instantly better. I think the air in there was fucking with us. The place is moldy and smelly. Old places will do though. Nina stopped abruptly. What the fuck? Where's the trail? I looked ahead. The trail we came in from was no longer there. It was just thick trees and bushes. I gaped, my eyes wide. How is that possible? We were just out here and the trail was right in front of us. Lena laughed nervously. See, you guys are all freaked out now. And you know that just makes things worse. The trail is there, just hold on. She went over to where the trail was supposed to be and tried to push through the bushes. It's here, it's just... She trailed off as she frantically pushed through tree limbs and thick brush. My heart sank. I was confused. The trail was right there. It brought us right to the house. But as we looked forward from the picket fence, it was like the house was smack dab in the middle of the woods, with nothing leading to it at all. Lena came out of the brush. It's just woods. Okay, no one panic yet. Let's look over here. We followed her around the house and to the backyard. Look, see, there's a trail. Huh, Lena exclaimed as she pointed to a gate at the end of the backyard. Sure enough, there was a trail there. We breathed a sigh of relief. I still didn't know what the hell happened out front, but I decided I shouldn't think about it too much. I didn't want to scare myself more than I already had. Before long, I could feel the tension ease a bit, and we were joking and laughing just as we had before. I took out my iPhone, wondering what the time was, but to my dismay, it was dead. Oh fuck, my stupid phone died. What time is it? I asked, stuffing my useless phone back into my pocket. Like a cliche horror movie. Nina and Lena's phones were somehow dead as well. We chalked it up to bad reception and wonky battery percentages. But I could tell Emily had tensed up. I didn't even bring mine. Are you guys serious? All your phones are dead. I looked up at the sky. It's okay, Emily. The sun is still up fairly high. It can't be past 3 o'clock, so we have lots of time to get back. They all agreed. But I could tell everyone was feeling uneasy, being out here with no way to call anyone in an emergency. Well, we're the generation that just isn't used to that kind of digital isolation. Not having a phone was making us all very uncomfortable. Discussions turned to other things. What we're going to eat for supper that night. How we should have rolled a few joints for the hike. What we would do tomorrow. When Nina exclaimed, "Oh look, I think I see a fence up there. Another abandoned house maybe." We hurried up the path to check it out. Falling down white picket fence. Peeling white paint on a salt box house. A window boarded up on the top floor. A front door falling off the hinges. Oh, you have to be fucking kidding me. I said, confused yet again. It was the same damn house. We had walked in a circle for what must have been an hour. But how? We walked in a circle? We couldn't have, Emily was stammering. But Lena just wrapped an arm around her and kissed her cheek softly. This sucks, but it happens sometimes, she said. These trails are a maze. We must have somehow got turned around. But we walked straight. We didn't go down any other trails. Lena, how? Emily and Lena continued to bicker. But I was too busy staring at the house to pay attention to what they were saying. I squinted and shielded my eyes from the lowering sun. The windows were reflective, but I thought for sure I had seen movement in the upper window. My heart was beating faster than I was comfortable with, and I convinced myself it was a trick of my eyes. But I noticed Nina staring at the same window. I walked over to her. "What are you looking at?" I asked her, worried what the reply was going to be. "I'm losing it, dude. I thought I saw something in the window up there. Something white, like a kid, maybe. I don't know. I don't see anything anymore. Forget it." Nina turned around and walked back towards Lena and Emily. I followed her. "I don't like this, Lena," I said. starting to feel really uneasy. Don't sweat it. Look, the trail was here the whole time. We must have just not noticed it when we left the first time. The trail in the backyard leads back to the house, which makes sense. So this time we just go down the trail we came from, and we'll be back to the cabin smoking a big bat in no time. She smiled at me. She was still pretty calm, still being silly old Lena. I felt better. She was right. The path behind the house would most likely lead back to the property. If we weren't paying attention, the woods were playing tricks on us. The mood was getting more somber though. Lena tried to pick up our spirits, but at that point, we wanted nothing more than to just get back to Lena's cabin. Lena and Emily took the lead, paying far more attention to where we were going this time, and making sure we weren't getting turned around again. The sun was getting lower in the sky, and the further we went, the more my stomach knotted. Suddenly, Lena stopped in her tracks and put a finger in the air to signal us to do the same. We stopped. What? Emily asked, frowning. I thought I heard someone call my name, she said, straining to listen. We did the same. I don't hear, I started to say, but then I heard it. Someone shout out my name. Not too far off like before, but much closer. My heart leapt into my throat. Who is that? Who out here even knows my name? Nina said, looking around. Hello, she called out. The rest of us looked confused. But I heard my name. Emily said. No one called your name, Nina. I heard someone call out Emily. This was not good. I couldn't hide the fear on my face, and neither could the others. No one said anything. We understood. Each of us had heard our own name being called. It felt like we stood there for a long time, just waiting. Then I heard it again, like it was someone in the distance, but still close by. Call my name again. I couldn't tell what direction it was coming from, and it sounded wrong. I couldn't tell if it was a man or woman, child or adult. It made my hair stand up, and my chest flutter. I saw the color drain from my friends' faces. Let's go, Lena said, and started to walk briskly down the path again. We tried to catch up to her, but Lena was taller and faster than the rest of us, and soon she was out of sight. Wait up, Emily called out, but a few seconds later, we saw that she was stopped on the path again just ahead of us. If that can't be, she stammered. I didn't see it at first, but looking up higher, at the tree line, I could see that damn house again. At this point, I didn't think my heart could beat any faster, but it did. How could this be happening? How did we go in a circle again when we were being so careful this time? What the fuck, Lena? What the fuck? Nina was yelling. How the hell did we walk in a circle again? Lena was shaking her head. I've never seen her look scared before. Lena was always the level-headed one of all of us, boasting about going on random adventures and never losing her cool even when she ran into trouble. I felt at that moment we were fucked. We were dead lost, and we would be out here for God only knows how long, with no food and not enough water. At that moment, the fairies came back into my mind, and I believed in that moment that they were very fucking real, and they were screwing with us. I could see Emily was on the verge of tears, and Lena wrapped her arm around her again and told her it was okay, and that they would find their way home, and not to worry. Nina and I just stood awkwardly in the path, not knowing what to say or what to do. We didn't want to go near the house again, so we just stood there while Lena calmed Emily down, until it was starting to get dark. We need to move, Nina finally said. I agreed. We weren't going to get out of here just standing around. Okay. This time we follow the sun. It's setting. We know if we follow it, we'll be going in one direction, and we can't get turned around again. Lena said. Off we went again. This time, none of us said a word. We were scared, we were hungry, and we were just getting pissed off. It was getting dangerously close to being dark by the time Emily spotted the house again. This time, she just burst into tears, unable to control herself any longer. I felt the tears stinging my eyes, and a hard lump in my throat myself. I wrinkled my nose as I tried to fight it back. Nina swore and began yelling at Lena. What the fuck, Lena? How is this possible? You said we wouldn't get lost. You said it was impossible. You said you would climb a fucking tree if you had to. So climb a tree, Lena. climb a tree, and find a way out. You got us into this. Holy shit, this is so fucked up. Lena just took Nina's strong words and said nothing, while she bit her lip. Okay, she replied when Nina was done, and started to look for a high and stable tree to find. Almost all the trees in Newfoundland forests are conifers. Pine, spruce, and fir trees. Not exactly that easy to climb. But at that point, Lena was desperate, and she struggled to climb through the dense branches that cracked easily under her weight. Somehow, she managed to get near the top, and she looked around. There, she shouted out, pointing in the opposite direction of the house. There's a light over that way. I can see it. She slid down excitedly. We started to jog in the direction, fighting our way through thick trees, and ignoring the cuts the brush was giving us. I didn't care anymore. I just needed to get away from that house and out of these woods. We stumbled into a clearing, and I heard Emily moan loudly. I looked up. We were at the back of the house this time. That is fucking impossible. Impossible. It was just behind us. Lena had her hands to her head in disbelief. I just gaped. I couldn't think straight. My breathing started to become rapid and uneven. My eyes began to cloud over. How? Repeated in my head. How is this happening? At this point, we were all crying, none of us able to fight it back any longer. Even Lena had tears streaming down her face. As she tried to calm Emily down, who was downright sobbing, we sat down in the grass behind the backyard fence, feeling defeated. It was more or less completely dark now. We had been in the woods for more than 8 hours by this time, and I was tired. My stomach was in knots. My chest felt tight and painful. None of us knew what to do. Suddenly, Emily gasped and pointed in front of her. What is? Wah. She stammered. My heart flew into my throat. I turned around. At the edge of the clearing, near the side of the house, maybe 20 feet from us, I could barely make out a shape. It was all white, or maybe it was gray, in the shape and size of a small child. It looked like a human, and it was completely naked, but it had no characteristics. Its face was blank, and between its legs was smooth like a doll. Nothing. It was like a completely blank person. It was standing casually, with its arm out, leaning against a tree, when it turned its head to look at us. I heard the others gasp behind me, and then we ran. We got up and tore ass out of there, but it felt like we ran for only a few seconds. When I bumped into Lena in front of me, she had stopped dead in her tracks, her mouth hanging open and her eyes wide. What? I started to say, until I realized the house was right in front of us again. My mind buzzed. I felt like I was going to fall over. We weren't alone this time. Making a circle around the house was a large group of these blank people. They were, well, I hesitate to say dancing, because it wasn't really dancing. It was more like twitching and shaking. Their limbs looked like they were filled with liquid, as their arms wiggled around their sides. Their legs stomped back and forth, as they moved their white blank bodies, head shaking, and their whole bodies twitching, in a way that made my blood run cold. They looked human, but these were not human movements. Human limbs don't bend or move that way, and they can't jerk around that quickly either. None of us said anything. None of us screamed. We just stood there, transfixed on these creatures, completely unable to process what we were seeing. My whole body felt frozen. My legs were jelly, and a scream was trying to escape from my throat, but it just couldn't make it out. Then, the creatures all stopped. They stopped and stood perfectly still, and in complete unison. They turned and looked directly at us. That was when we ran. I ran as fast and as hard as I ever have. We ran with tears streaming down our faces, until I couldn't feel my legs anymore, and my lungs were on fire. I didn't know it was possible that I could even run like that. My mind was blank. The only thing I could focus on was Nina, who was directly in front of me. I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't feel anything. I just ran. It felt like we ran for hours. When we reached a clearing, and I saw a streetlight, I burst into sobbing tears. I couldn't control it any longer. My whole body was shaking, and I fell to the ground. Nina held me. We all cried together, sat in the grass on the side of the road, with a street light glaring down at us. We were out. After we had composed ourselves, we began slowly making our way back to Lena's cabin. We were exhausted. Everything hurt. We walked back without saying a word to each other. As we reached the driveway, we noticed the lights were on in the cabin, and there was another car in the driveway. It was Lena's parents. They were casually sitting on the back deck, listening to music and drinking beers. Her mom jumped up as soon as we came into sight. "Where were you? My lord, Lena, what mess were you in now?" She gasped, looking at all of us, cut and bruised, with puffy eyes. "What you guys doing here?" was all Lena managed to say in reply. "You knew we were coming today. Where in the world were you?" "But, Mom, it's only Wednesday." "It's Saturday, Lena. Were you guys out on a bender in the woods? Are you okay? You're all a mess." None of us said a word. We couldn't. If we talked about it, then that meant it was all real. I don't know what happened to those 3 lost days we had in those woods. What I do know is that I was completely wrong about fairies. They're nothing like the old folktales say. They are not little old guys with pointy hats that prance merrily around rocks, or cute little girls with wings. They're so much worse than that. It has been many years, and I still haven't come to terms with what happened. Writing this has been a struggle, but maybe now, after writing it all down and admitting that it happened, maybe I'll be able to hike through the woods again. Maybe I'll stop hearing my name being called out in the distance. Maybe I'll stop seeing those blank faces staring into my bedroom window at night. Maybe. The shadow that took her. This happened years ago, but it is still something that sticks with me. This all happened like a sequence. You never know if things are supposed to happen for a reason or if some unknown outside force influences it. But first, a backstory. My friend, let's call her Lena, was a cheery, happy-go-lucky young woman. She rode one of those crotch rocket bikes and loved riding it. Always up for new and exciting things. She took a job as a security guard for a casino I worked at. She was always that ray of sunshine that would bring you up if you were having a bad day. Even when she was feeling down, she always made it a point to make sure you were feeling better. After a year, she was promoted to a gaming officer. She was really happy, as this was an entry point to get into the upstairs offices. She would tell me often that if she got in, she would try to get me in with her. I worked on the floor, paying out jackpots and getting change for gamers. Not long after her promotion, she started acting funny. Not so much that people noticed it right away, but enough that I noticed it. She would come to work tired or come late, but never said why. I noticed her attitude change as well. She was more jumpy and cautious than normal. One time, during conversation we were having on the floor, she stopped and just, as I first thought, stared at me. I realized after a little bit that she wasn't staring at me, but behind me. I turned but saw nothing. She seemed to snap out of it after a bit and brushed it off as losing her track of thought. I never questioned it at the time. One day, she came in 2 hours late. Her superior wasn't too happy. He had actually sought me out on the floor to see if I could get a hold of her. When she did come in, she looked worse for wear. She was unkempt, baggy red eyes, and jittery. When questioned by her superior, she put it as a late night out. When she came to the floor, she pulled me aside and asked to meet up after work. We met at Denny's, and she proceeded to tell me what was going on. She, as she put it, was having weird shit happen to her. It started subtlety at first. A chill here, a noise there. Nothing she couldn't explain away. But as time progressed, things got weirder. The chills got colder, the noises got louder and more frequent. Things were never where she left them. Then it started happening at work. Her desk was always rearranged from how she left it. She thought that someone was messing with her, even voicing her concern, but nobody ever came forward. When she was walking the floor, she would feel a tap on her shoulder or a tug on her shirt, with nobody around. When she would walk to her office, which was located near the uniform room in a less trafficked area of the building, she always heard footsteps in line with hers, as if someone was walking right behind her. She was afraid to use the restrooms as well if no one was with her. It was there one day, she said she got scared real bad. answering the call of nature. She had just begun when, she said, there was a single light knock on the stall door. She had announced herself in the stall when someone knocked again. This time 2 of them, louder than the first. She had said she was using it and was in the middle of asking to use another, when the door began to rattle, as if someone was jiggling the handle. Then it stopped. She said she was about to get up when, to her horror, the sliding lock began to slowly move, unlocking itself. Lena said she flung the door open. No one was there. When she got out of the stall, no one was in there. She was about to walk out when, turning toward the stalls, she said she saw a dark mass, humanoid-looking, peeking out behind the furthest stall. She said she has seen it often since. The day she was really late. She said she was awoken from her sleep. It was night. Her room was dark, and she couldn't speak nor move. She tried to, she told me, but couldn't, and she had a dreaded feeling like she wasn't alone. The only thing she could move was her eyes, she recalled, and she happened to look up with them, seeing this humanoid mass looking right down at her. A faint glow where eyes would be. She said she closed her eyes and was able to scream, finally gaining control of her body. She jumped out of bed and tried to turn on the light near her bed, but it wouldn't work. The mass then started to come toward her, blocking her bedroom door. She said she ran into the closet and shut it. The light in the closet worked. She said she was afraid of opening the door. She heard it moving around the room. She fell asleep in there, not waking till late in the morning, got quickly dressed and came in, hence her appearance. The last week of her life, she stayed with me. Despite the odd occurrence at work, nothing ever happened at my place. She was peaceful. She was sleeping and eating again. And on her days off, she reported nothing happening. The day she died was one of the strangest and scariest days of my life. It started with me going in like normal. I came in at 8 and Lena came in an hour later. Things were pretty normal, and at 12 we went to lunch. During lunch, she told me she was going to go back to her place. The last week was pretty good, and she hoped that whatever it was had finally left her alone. After that, we went back to our posts. About half an hour after lunch, my supervisor calls me in the office and says one of the swing shift people called out and asked if I could pull a double. If I agreed, I could take the next day off or come in and get the overtime. So I agreed. At around the same time, Lena was asked to stay a few hours more, as one of her co-workers had suddenly gotten ill in the stomach and had to go. So she agreed. After that, I got the strangest feeling like I was being watched. Couldn't explain it. I felt someone was staring at me in empty parts of the floor. Lena told me she started to feel like a weight was being lifted off her, but she also felt like I was in trouble somehow. She said something in the back of her head said that someone was mad at me, like they hated me, but she didn't know who, nor could she explain why it was that specific feeling. My second shift started, and her extra hours started like this. Some of my co-workers reported feeling uneasy around me, while Lena said that she was becoming like her old self again. When Lena was getting ready to end her shift at 11 in the evening that night, I took my final break to say goodbye. As I was getting out an hour after her, she said she felt free in what seemed like forever. She wanted to enjoy her ride home. She said she would text me when she made it. We hugged, and I saw her off for what would be the last time. Needing to get back on the floor, I had the call of nature beckoning me, but I decided I could hold it. Or so I thought. As I was making my rounds, that urge came at me strong, literally forcing me to make a mad rush to the employee restroom. I ran in and got the nearest urinal. Relieved, I washed my hands and started to leave, when a light, soft knock came from the direction of the stalls. There, peeking out from the farthest stall, was a black mass, humanoid looking with a soft glow where the eyes should be. I blinked and it was gone. I stood frozen there, literally trying to rationalize if I saw something or not. I looked at the time on my phone. 20 minutes had passed since Lena left. I looked up, and there it was again. Only this time, I got this really bad feeling that something was wrong, and I bolted out of there. That image was burned into my memory and has been ever since. I called Lena, but it went to voicemail. I finished the rest of my shift with that dreaded feeling. After work, I went home and tried calling again. Voicemail. I left her a message to get back to me ASAP. That feeling stayed with me until I fell asleep. My sister, Emily, broke the news to me that morning. Her boyfriend, Derek, was an EMT that responded to an accident call. He, Lena, and I, as well as my sister, had all gone to high school together. Being the one that took the call, he was shocked to find her off the road, about 40 feet to be exact, dead with a broken neck. She had hit the safeguard, this metal piece that curved with the road. He thought it weird that she would have landed 40 feet away, seeing that the speed limit at the turn was only 20, and that later it was determined that she hit it going 10 miles an hour. No alcohol nor drugs were found in her system, so they thought that she probably fell asleep, and when she hit, she landed neck first and slid to a halt. Though I was later told by Derek that when he got there, he didn't see anything that looked like she slid. The ground, he remembered, was undisturbed. This has haunted me for a while now. A few weeks ago, I dreamed Lena was talking to me. I couldn't hear her, and she had this blank, almost emotionless expression. She then points behind me, and there it is, the thing I saw the day my friend died. I am by no means an artist or a painter. Hell, I can hardly draw. But after that dream, I had to try to depict what I saw in a restroom all those years ago. This is the closest I've gotten to it. One more thing I forgot to mention. When a time of death was given, it was around 11:20 p.m., about the same time I saw that fucking thing. Update. It's been years since I've been in that casino. I recently went back to my hometown, where it's located, and caught up with old friends who still work there. Apparently, that thing is following another friend of mine like it did Lena. My friend, Ryan, suffered a nervous breakdown during his shift. The girl I spoke to said he was always acting weirder than normal, culminating in his screaming and ranting about the shadow that won't leave him alone. Only a close few people know about what Lena went through and what I experienced, and the girl I spoke to was one of them. She mentioned that other things have been happening. My brother, who started working security there a few years ago, mentioned something creepy he once witnessed. The security team usually has a driver who drives around the property to make sure the parking areas and back part of the casino are safe. Behind the casino are these dumpster areas that the food and beverage and custodial teams use. Well, my brother tells me that one night he went on break. There's a patio area outside that employees use to sit or to smoke. There's a wall around it, but on the other side are the dumpsters. He goes to the patio with one of the food and beverage girls to smoke. During this time, they hear faint crying. At the same time, over his radio, he hears the truck driver calling in. Regarding a female he spots crying in the corner of the dumpsters. He says the driver describes her as short, long dark hair, blue sweater, and jeans with no shoes on. She's crouched in the corner with her back to him, sobbing loudly as he tells it. My brother, of course, being on the opposite side of the wall, can barely hear the crying. Well, he then says the driver calls it in to surveillance. There are 2 cameras that point in that direction, one seeing that particular corner very well. After he calls it in, surveillance gets back to him asking what he's talking about. This is how he put it. Sir, what are you calling it again? DRI. A female in the corner of the dumpster is crying. She is not responding to my calls. Sir, okay. We see you. We don't see a girl. DRI, what do you mean? She's right in front of me. Sir, no, sir. All we see is you. No one else. DRI, are you serious? You really don't see the girl right here? Sir, no, sir. If this is a joke, then it's a bad one, not to mention a waste of our time. That's about the time my brother says the crying stopped, followed by a shriek from the driver, and him burning rubber out of there. My brother went on to say that the driver was visibly shaken and trembling when pressed by his supervisor about what happened. He related that after surveillance said she wasn't there, she stopped crying and stood up, her head falling back like it had no neck bones. Then she started to walk towards him, but backwards, with her head dangling side to side. He shrieked and got out of there. What was disturbing as well to my brother was that later, the driver said that when her head fell back, It had no face. I must say, some creepy shit is going on there. I wonder, though, about the way he described the girl. I wonder if it was Lena. Even though she didn't die at the casino, I wonder if that thing is keeping her trapped there.
And that was tonight's tale from the Shadowed Tales archive. If it left a mark on your mind, if the silence feels heavier now, then the story did what it was meant to do. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the darkness. New stories are always on their way. Until then, keep the lights low and the doors locked.